Discover the incredible truth. How 30 seconds with my lawyer changed everything for my family. Sarah had always thought of herself as a fighter. Every day was a whirlwind of early mornings, grinding shifts, and late-night homework sessions with her son, Jake. But the world tilted on its axis when she opened that envelope. Foreclosure. For years, their home had been a sanctuary filled with laughter, soccer practice dreams, and sweet moments that kept hope alive. Now, it felt like a crumbling castle threatened by dark clouds. That day, the air felt heavy in their modest living room. Jake was sprawled on the couch, a soccer ball resting beside him. His dreams of becoming a professional player were so tangible, yet so far away now. The weight of her father's medical bills loomed like a storm. He served his country valiantly, but now required more care than Sarah could afford. Tears stung her eyes as she tried to make sense of the chaos in her chest. She needed help. Time was slipping through her fingers like sand. Arriving at the community legal aid clinic felt like stepping into a new world. Desperation clung to her, but as she sat in the waiting room, she noticed the community spirit alive among the weary faces. When it was her turn, she walked into Mr. Thompson's office, her heart pounding. This man was a legend in their small town. Known for his tenacity and heart, he could be their last hope. In 30 seconds, he spoke with an intensity that ignited a spark in her heart. Sarah, there are resources here you don't even know exist. We can fight this. His gaze was steady and reassuring, the power of his conviction wrapping around her like a warm embrace. For the first time in months, a flicker of hope danced in her chest. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah left the clinic invigorated, her head spinning with the possibilities of what could happen next. The power of her community began to take shape. Neighbors rallied together, pulling off bake sales and car washes to raise money. Each contribution felt like a lifeline connecting them, reinforcing the unbreakable American spirit of unity in tough times. But there was a storm brewing on the horizon. Glitzy flyers from a shadowy developer promised renovations that would modernize the neighborhood at the expense of its soul. Panic set in. Would they really surrender their home? They needed strength, confidence, and teamwork to resist the greedy force looming over them. Sarah gathered her neighbors for a meeting, their first step towards standing together. Doubts loomed just as large, her heart raced at their first encounter. Yet, she could feel the collective strength of their shared stories. Would love be enough to hang on when everything seemed destined to break? As they braced for the meeting, Sarah's mind was consumed with thoughts of her family's legacy. Would they have the courage to challenge the powerful? Could they truly come together to fend off the darkness? United under the banner of hope, they stood at the edge of something monumental. The little community center buzzed with nervous energy. Sarah stood at the front, her palms clammy, heart racing like a drum. The room was filled with familiar faces, neighbors who'd shared barbecues, Halloween pumpkin carvings, and countless soccer games. Tonight, they weren't just neighbors, they were fighters, rising together against a common adversary. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice shaky but growing stronger. "We're here because we face a threat. Our homes, our lives, they're at stake." She paused, scanning the room. Their expressions mirrored her uncertainty, brows furrowed and shoulders tense. "But we can't let fear control us." The front row included Mr. Davis, a retired firefighter who had always been a pillar in the community. He leaned forward, his blue eyes sparkling with intensity. "What do we do, Sarah? We can't just sit idle." The urgency in his voice tore through the tension like a knife. "We fight," she replied, her courage rising. "We form a coalition to oppose the developer. Together, we'll gather signatures, we'll show up at town meetings, and we'll make our voices heard. We have every right to protect our homes." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Part of her still couldn't believe this was happening, a small sliver of doubt whispering that they were no match for the money and power backing the developer. But she chose to ignore it, focusing instead on the flicker of resolve she saw in the eyes of her neighbors. Let's start with that fundraiser, Sarah continued. We'll need to cover legal costs and rally support. Jake's soccer team could even help. They could set up a booth. The idea sparked a wave of enthusiasm, plans flying from mouth to mouth. A garage sale, a potluck dinner, even a neighborhood talent show. The energy was palpable, and as they brainstormed, Sarah felt that warmth of community back again, the shared laughter, the familiarity. It was a spark turning into a flame, but the reality loomed larger as the detailed plans took shape. In private moments, Sarah's mind drifted. What if the community banded together but still didn't win? What if she lost everything? Each thought tugged at her heart, the weight of worry heavy on her chest. Still, the look on Jake's face as he kicked the soccer ball around outside gave her resolve. She had to fight, not just for herself, but for him and for everyone else. Days turned into a whirlwind of activity. Flyers were posted, neighbors signed petitions, and there was a new determination in the air. Sarah even heard laughter as kids played in yards, a sound that somehow seemed threatened yet more precious than ever. Then came the day of the town meeting, where the developer would present his plans. Sarah stood in front of her neighbors once more, clutching a stack of papers. Her heart pounded. This was the moment of truth. Brochures flaunting the developer's shiny new promises lay on the table next to her. As they entered the packed hall, she felt the collective heartbeat of her community surrounding her. The end of the meeting would either see them diminished or ignited. Could they really make a difference? Would the town listen? Taking a deep breath, she led the way forward. Whatever happened next would be their collective story, written with love, grit, and unyielding spirit. What she didn't know was how far they were willing to go to protect what mattered most, and if they would truly emerge victorious against the tide of change. The silence in the room thickened as the developer stepped to the podium, a sly smile crossing his face. Would those plans come crashing down around them? Or would the strength of their unity prove unstoppable? The developer cleared his throat, his confident tone slicing through the silence. Thank you for gathering here tonight. I assure you, the proposed development will only enhance our community. More jobs, better infrastructure, this is progress, folks. He flashed a smile that felt more like a smirk. Sarah could sense a dismissive energy from the audience, like a gasping intake before a tidal wave of anger crashed forward. Mr. Davis stood up, his voice steady but laced with urgency. What about our homes? What about the families who've lived here for generations? The room erupted, voices rising in a chorus of questions and objections. Sarah felt her heart lift at this display of community strength. But the developer waved his hand dismissively. The land is zoned for development. You'll be compensated adequately, of course. Compensation? Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising above the noise. You think money can replace the bonds we share? This place is more than just land. Let us keep this civil, the town mayor interrupted, attempting to regain control over the meeting, but the tension was palpable. This wasn't just a discussion about property, it was about identity. Gradually, the murmur of dissent gained momentum. Neighbors stood, some raised their hands to speak, each voicing not just concerns about the development, but their fears of losing their homes, their memories, and their children's futures. As the evening wore on, Sarah could feel the tide shifting. For every slick statistic and broken promise the developer threw at them, there was a haunting story shared: a single mother with her son's soccer trophies lining the wall, the elderly couple who planted the oak tree at the center of the playground, and the children who grew up racing their bikes on the very streets the developer planned to pave over. As Sarah listened, something stirred deep within her. Hope mingled with the fear and uncertainty she felt. She pictured Jake, older now, looking back on a childhood where laughter echoed in a yard he could still call home. Her heart raced not just out of anxiety, but determination. This was their fight. When the developer finally offered the floor to any further questions, Sarah didn't hesitate. She stepped up to the podium, the community's eyes on her. What you're proposing isn't progress. It's erasure. Murmurs of agreement surged through the crowd. We're not against progress, but we want the community's voices to shape the future, not the whims of someone who sees us only as dollar signs. For a moment, she felt deafening silence. Then, Mr. Davis broke it with a booming cheer. You tell him, Sarah. His words echoed through the hall, igniting the room. Suddenly, the town meeting transformed. Neighbors rallied around her, sharing their stories, fanning flames of passion and conviction. The developer's polished demeanor began to crack, frustration creeping into his voice as he attempted to downplay their concerns, but then, a shadow crossed Sarah's face as she remembered the legal documents she'd skimmed through before. A momentary lapse in confidence washed over her. Frantically, her mind raced back to the lawyer she had met a week prior, her warnings lingering in her thoughts. Are we truly prepared for the fight ahead? She thought, biting her lip. Would the community really stick together? A single nagging question warred within her. What if they didn't have the resources to take this battle to court? Just then, the developer struck back, his voice booming. I assure you, if you want to fight this, you'll lose more than your homes. A chill swept through the room. The reality of what they faced settled like ice in her stomach, but in the midst of uncertainty, Sarah caught the determined glint in Mr. Davis's eyes, and the resilience of her neighbors around her reignited her own fire. They were standing together, and whatever fears lay ahead, they were not alone. As the meeting wrapped up, Sarah felt a profound community bond growing stronger. She saw not just allies, but a family determined to protect their future. Outside, the night air felt electric, buzzing with nervous energy. But could their unity withstand the pressure to come? And as Sarah stepped into the cool evening, an even deeper question nagged at her. What if they needed to go beyond town meetings? What if the fight had just begun? The following day brought a heavy fog that draped over the town, the sky matching the weight pressing down on Sarah's shoulders. She watched as the streets she'd known her whole life slowly emerged from the haze. Each step she took felt heavier than the last, her mind spinning with thoughts of last night's meeting. What if they were facing something far bigger than she initially thought? Arriving at her office, Sarah's stomach twisted. She had a scheduled meeting with her lawyer, but the fear of what they might uncover gnawed at her. The door swung open, and her lawyer, Lena, greeted her with a determined expression. We need to talk about next steps, Lena said, closing the door behind them. I don't know if our community is ready for this, Sarah confessed, sinking into the chair across from Lena. What if we're not strong enough? We've got the heart, Sarah. What matters now is strategy. Lena's eyes sparkled with conviction. Your passion is contagious. That's what we need. But we also need to prepare for potential fallout. As they dove into the details of the developer's proposal, Sarah listened intently, each piece of information sending shivers down her spine. You know, filing a suit isn't just about opposing the development, it's about showing them that we stand united. Lena leaned in, her voice low but firm. They'll come for your community if you don't fight back. Hard. Fear and hope mingled in Sarah's chest. But what if we lose? What if it gets ugly? Lena paused, her expression softening. Sometimes, the fight is what defines us. It's about standing up, about making your voice heard, even amidst uncertainty. Sarah nodded, feeling a flicker of empowerment light within her. So, what do we do next? Without hesitation, Lena outlined their plan. They'd gather stories from the community, compile evidence of how the development would hurt their homes, their families. It's not just about legal terms, it's about the lives being impacted. That's your strength. With every word Lena spoke, Sarah felt more alive. The fight was no longer just about saving her neighborhood, it was about stirring something greater, a resistance against a tide that threatened to wash them away. Later, as she walked through her now familiar neighborhood, she approached each house with a new sense of purpose. Mrs. Thompson was out watering her garden. Hey, Mrs. Thompson. Sarah called, rushing over. Can we talk? We need your story in this fight. At first, Mrs. Thompson appeared hesitant, her brow furrowing. What if it backfires, dear? But think of the kiddos playing out here, the memories made, Sarah urged, her passion igniting. We're in this together, you're not alone. Slowly, Mrs. Thompson's face softened. All right then, I'll share what I can. They spent the afternoon gathering not just Mrs. Thompson's stories, but laughter, warmth, and a renewed sense of community. In the days that followed, Sarah became a beacon, rallying her neighbors, inspiring them to share their own tales of love and loss intertwined with their homes. The power of their stories formed a tapestry that began to weave their fight into a compelling narrative, asserting their claim to a history they refused to let fade. As the first meeting of their united community unfolded, excitement buzzed through the air. Sarah felt a heaviness lifting, replaced by something potent determination. Just then, her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her reverie. It was a message from Mr. Davis. We need to talk. I may have more leverage than we thought. Heart racing, Sarah wondered what news could possibly change their path. This new clue felt like a turning point, a chance to strike back. But what could this leverage be? As she looked around at her neighbors, the warmth of their unity surrounding her, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing at the edge of something monumental. Would their resolve hold when the truth was finally revealed? With a trembling hand, Sarah clutched her phone tighter, rereading Mr. Davis's message as if the words alone could teleport her into his office. The excitement pulsated through her, mingling with an undercurrent of dread. What sort of leverage could he possibly hold that could alter their course? Is everything all right? Lena asked, her sharp gaze resting on Sarah. Yes. I mean, I just got a message from Mr. Davis, Sarah replied, her voice breaking just a little. He says he has more leverage than we thought. Lena's brow furrowed slightly, curiosity igniting. That sounds promising. Do you want to take the call now? Definitely. Sarah nodded, her heart pounding as she dialed the number. Each ring felt like an eternity. Sarah. Great to hear from you, Mr. Davis's voice came through with an unexpected cheerfulness, not matching her own anxiety. Hi, Mr. Davis. You mentioned leverage, what did you mean? There was a brief pause on the other end, a beat where Sarah held her breath. I've uncovered some discrepancies in the developer's permit application. They may have misrepresented their intentions to the city council. It's significant enough to turn the tide in our favor. Hope flickered within Sarah, casting aside the shadows of doubt. What can we do? First, we need to prepare an airtight case. The more evidence we have, the better, he explained. I still recommend gathering testimonies from the community. If we can prove the emotional and historical impact of the development, we can make a strong argument. Her resolve intensified. I'll rally everyone again. We'll collect more stories. Also, there's a city council meeting next week. It would be ideal if you could present some of those testimonies there. Right. Sounds doable. Her mind raced, calculating the logistics while the anticipation built. As soon as she hung up, she turned to Lena, who was watching her closely. He has proof, Lena. Actual proof that could work in our favor. All we need to do now is act fast. Then let us mobilize everyone. The more we can pull together, the stronger we'll be. Lena's enthusiasm mirrored Sarah's increasing excitement. They organized a meeting that night, calling on neighbors to gather at the community center. As people trickled in, a palpable buzz began to fill the room. By the time everyone was seated, even the most timid among them felt the weight of unity propelling them forward. Sarah stepped up to the podium, her heart racing in her chest. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice steadying as she took in the faces of her friends and neighbors. We have some news that could change everything. Together, we've already begun opening our hearts and sharing our stories. Now, we have a chance to not just protect our homes, but to stand up for our community. As she communicated the gravity of the situation and Mr. Davis's findings, a ripple of energy coursed through the crowd. Heads nodded, determination etched on their faces. One by one, neighbors stood, sharing their experiences, the laughter of children playing outside, the stories of homeowners who had fought for their slice of happiness. The room filled with love and nostalgia, reinforcing their bond even tighter. Later that night, when the crowd finally dispersed, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. However, a seed of anxiety sprouted within her. What if the developer fought back harder than they anticipated? What if their efforts fell short? With the weight of her neighbors' hopes resting on her shoulders, she realized the stakes had never felt higher. As she walked home, the fog of uncertainty began to return, thickening the air around her. Just then, Sarah's phone buzzed again. It was a news alert: developer launches counter-campaign against community resistance. Fear surged through her, mingled with their earlier resolve. What would their next move be? How could they counteract the developer's influence before it was too late? She felt their unity like a heartbeat, strong yet fragile, and wondered if they could withstand the storm that was about to descend on them. As she stood outside her home, rain began to pelt down, mirroring the tumult in her heart. Were they ready for what lay ahead? The next morning brought with it a sky bruised with thick clouds. Sarah huddled under her blanket, clutching her steaming mug of coffee as if it could provide the comfort she desperately sought. The insistent chatter of the news report from her phone only added to the anxiety swirling in her mind. Headlines shrieked about the developer's counter-campaign, a slick advertising blitz targeting the residents, calling them not fit to speak for the future. The bitterness of it all settled in her stomach. They were fighting for their homes, yet they were the ones being painted as villains. Her fingers danced nervously over her phone screen, scrolling through social media posts filled with outrage. But beneath the anger and defiance lay a growing fear. Would the developer's wealth and influence drown out their voices? Lena arrived, bursting into the kitchen, her usual vibrant energy subdued. "Sarah, did you see the latest?" She plopped down across from her, eyes darting to the screen. "Their campaign is everywhere. I heard they're even sending out flyers to target people, saying we're just a bunch of selfish homeowners." Sarah fought to maintain her composure. "They think they can twist the narrative. We can't let that happen. We've got to refocus the conversation back to what matters." "But how?" Lena's voice softened, the determination faltering. "It feels like we're fighting against an avalanche. What can we do against their money?" "We fight with our stories," Sarah insisted, her voice growing firmer. "We remind them that these homes carry memories, legacies. This is our community." As the sun broke through the clouds outside, illuminating their kitchen with warm light, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. "Let us organize a community walk. We can invite everyone to share stories right where they took place. People need to see our love for this place. It's not just about houses, it's about history, family." Lena's eyes brightened, her spirit lifting with the suggestion. "What if we made it an event? Music, food, local art? Let us show them who we really are." With renewed fervor, they reached out to neighbors, planning the walk for that weekend. Each call felt like a lifeline cast in dark waters. People responded with excitement, and slowly, that burden of doubt began to ease. They couldn't silence the stories that shaped their lives. But even with their plans firming up, unease loomed over Sarah. She replayed the words of Mr. Davis in her head, the history-leveling stakes they were up against. Would practical stories be enough to sway the council? Would the darkness that came from the developer's money create a chasm too wide to bridge? As they loaded promotional materials into Lena's trunk later that week, Sarah spotted an unfamiliar car parked near the community center. It was sleek and black with tinted windows. An uneasy feeling fluttered in her stomach. Had the developer sent someone to keep tabs on their efforts? "What's that about?" Lena noticed Sarah's line of sight. "Not sure, but we can't let them intimidate us." Sarah's voice hardened as she grabbed a poster and headed inside. The community walk unfolded beautifully. Stories flowed, laughter echoed, and hope shimmered in the sunlight. Yet, as Sarah scanned the crowd, the shadow of that black car lingered in her mind. She spotted a figure emerging from it, someone familiar from the developer's team. What were they doing here? Her stomach tightened again. The stakes were rising, and they were only just beginning to realize the full depth of what lay ahead. As the shadows stretched longer in the evening light, Sarah knew they were about to enter the toughest part of the fight. The moment of truth was creeping closer. What bold moves would they need to take? Would their courage stand strong against the opposition? The sun kissed the horizon, painting the community park in warm hues of orange and pink. Sarah glanced around, the laughter of children and the drone of chatter fading in and out like music. Everyone seemed alive with purpose. Stories flowed from each corner, each one a powerful thread in the fabric of their shared home. But the figure from the black car remained lodged in her mind, a shadow threatening to darken this vibrant tapestry of connection. As the crowd gathered under the big oak tree, she couldn't help but feel a pit of dread in her stomach. She stepped away from Lena, who was busy chatting with a group of neighbors about the event's success. Sarah needed clarity. She moved closer to the tree, taking a breath to steady herself, when a voice cut through the cacophony. "Sarah, could I have a word?" Her heart dropped at the sight of Emily, the community lawyer who had been quietly supportive through their battles. There was urgency in her eyes, a flicker that tugged at Sarah's instincts. "What is going on?" "We need to talk about the developer's tactics," Emily said, glancing toward the black car. "I just came from a meeting with some other homeowners, and they've already been reaching out to people in your community." Her heart raced. "What do you mean? What are they trying to do?" Emily lowered her voice, her brow furrowing. "They're not just using ads. They've been attempting to sow distrust. Apparently, they're telling people that we're pursuing legal action to block all development, which isn't true. They want to isolate you. To make it seem like this is a fight between just a few residents and the city's progress." "This is insane," Sarah muttered, feeling her chest tighten. "What do we do?" "First, we need to combat that misinformation. We can't let their narrative take hold. I have an idea, but it requires full community support." Sarah's mind raced. She could see it, the growing divide she'd always feared. The seed of doubt had already started to blossom, threatening to tear apart what they were trying to build. "What do you need from us?" "Tomorrow, let us hold an emergency town hall. An open forum to discuss everything, address their lies, share your stories again, but also focus on unity. We cannot let them fracture us. We're stronger together." A wave of warmth surged through her. This was the rallying cry they needed. "You're right. This isn't just about keeping our homes, it's about protecting our community's spirit." As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, Sarah felt a renewed sense of determination. She turned back to the gathering crowd, exhilaration tinged with fear. How could they bring everyone together when lies were starting to prick at their trust? Could they inspire unity in a moment like this? "Can I count on you to lead tomorrow?" Emily asked, her eyes locking onto Sarah's. "We can't let the fear run the show." "Yes, absolutely." Sarah nodded vigorously, steadied by a resoluteness she wasn't sure she had before. "I'll get everyone here. We'll tell our stories again, and we'll remind them that our love for this place is stronger than their deceit." But deep inside, doubt lingered. Would it really make a difference? Night fell softly, wrapping the park in shadows. The world felt heavy and uncertain. Yet, as the first stars blinked above, Sarah held on to the flicker of hope blazing within her. She had to believe in the power of their stories, the strength of their unity. And somewhere, lingering in the damp air, the figure from the black car watched closely, eyes trained on them. What would they try next? Tomorrow, they would confront not just the developers' lies, but their own fears. Would they be able to rise to the occasion? The morning light cut through the mist, brightening Sarah's sleepy town. She stood in her kitchen, the aroma of coffee swirling in the air. On the counter, notes lay scattered, thoughts on how to unite the community, reminders of stories that needed sharing. But beneath the buzz of caffeine, her mind whirled with anxiety. Would everyone show up? Would they trust her enough to listen? These questions dragged at her like weights. Today wasn't just another meeting, it was their chance to take a stand. With a final glance at her reflection, she plastered on a smile, trying to mask the butterflies fluttering in her stomach. As Sarah made her way to the town hall, she passed the park where yesterday's festivities still echoed in her mind. Children played, laughter mingling with the sound of rustling leaves. But in the corners of her heart, fear lingered. She could almost feel the shadow of the figure from the black car, an unseen threat looming. When Sarah arrived, the hall was bustling with neighbors. Familiar faces greeted her, but today there was an underlying tension. She spotted Lena, her best friend, waving from a corner. The moment their eyes locked, a silent understanding passed between them. They both felt it, the anxiety crackling like static electricity. "Are you ready?" Lena asked, concern etched in her features. "As ready as I'll ever be," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt. In a small circle, Emily gathered the group, her presence grounding. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Emily began, looking around the crowd. Her voice was calm, yet there was a fire behind her words. "We need to expose the truth, stand together against these lies." The room was silent, anticipation buzzing around them. Sarah took a deep breath, stepping forward into the spotlight. "It's not just about keeping our homes. It's about our stories, our community. We can't allow them to divide us. If we let doubt seep in, we lose everything." A murmur swept through the crowd. Sarah felt her heart race. Were they really listening? She spotted a few familiar faces nodding along. "Last week, our group was filled with hope. Let us remember that moment. How we came together for the bake sale or the fundraisers. It's those memories that make us strong. If they want to isolate us, we fight back with our unity." She looked at Emily, whose encouraging smile gave her the banter she needed. "So let us share our stories again, let us remind each other of why this place matters to us. I know I wouldn't be here without all of you." More voices joined in, each sharing experiences, small victories, and the love they had for their community. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes, but they were ones of joy. Each word bound them tighter, an invisible thread weaving through the crowd. But just as the mood lightened, the door creaked open, and in walked the figure from the black car. A hush fell over the room. What do they want? Sarah thought, cold fear rushing through her. The sense of togetherness that had built so quickly threatened to shatter. The intruder scanned the room, an unreadable expression on their face. "What now?" whispered Lena, her grip on Sarah's arm tightening. "Stay strong," Sarah whispered back, taking a breath. "Together, remember?" Sarah's mind raced. Was this a confrontation? A new tactic to shake their resolve? She stepped back up to the front, meeting the figure's gaze with a fire blazing in her own. "We're not afraid. We are here for each other." Outside, the wind howled softly, a prelude to the impending storm. As uncertainty filled the air, the only thing that shone brighter was the fierce determination she felt in her heart. What would happen next? Would they stand united against the challenge laid before them? The room felt smaller as the figure from the black car stepped fully inside, the weight of their presence pressing against the gathered crowd. Sarah's heart beat louder, thudding in her ears. She could see the way the townspeople shifted, their earlier confidence dimming under this new threat. Yet there was a defiance that sparked in the air, something they had built together. "Identify yourself," Sarah called out, her voice steady, but inside, her nerves screamed. The figure lingered at the threshold, their face obscured by shadows. A low voice echoed through the space. "You're stirring up trouble, Sarah." It was a smooth, almost rehearsed tone, but she could sense the underlying menace curling around the words. "You're putting everyone at risk." "Risk?" Sarah repeated, an ember of anger igniting within her. "The only risk is letting fear keep us silent. We have a right to fight for our homes, for our lives together." There was a collective hold of breath. She could see the validation surfacing in a few faces. Mark from down the street, whose garden always bloomed brightest, stood a little taller. The elderly Mrs. Hargrove, with her warm smile and kind heart, nodded slowly, as if drawing strength from the gathering. "Do you think this is a game?" The figure took a step forward, their posture aggressive. Questions slithered through the crowd. Was it a threat? A warning? Before anyone could respond, Lena moved beside Sarah, her hand on her friend's shoulder, offering an unspoken vow of support. Sarah found herself grounding in that moment, the electricity of community thrumming in her veins. The only game here is fear, and we're ready to take our power back. If you're here to intimidate, you've come to the wrong place. The figure narrowed their eyes, but the room cried out a swelling chorus of agreement. Speak up. We stand united. We won't back down. It grew louder with each voice, stirring something primal within them all. Suddenly, a woman with a baby in her arms spoke up. My family needs this place. We deserve to feel safe. More voices joined in, a wave crashing against that looming shadow. Before the figure could respond, Emily took the opportunity to move forward, her voice rising over the chaos. We have to ask ourselves what happens if we allow fear to drive us apart. This isn't just about property, it's our love, our stories. We must not let anyone dictate what we can or cannot say. Sarah felt the harmony in Emily's words, the reminder of why they had all gathered. There was purpose here, to find strength through sharing, to lift each other up even when faced with the darkness. The figure faltered, their intensity shifting. You don't know what you're getting into, they warned, but a crack had formed in their mask. Or maybe we do, Sarah shot back. We might be a small town, but our hearts are bigger than any threat. The energy crackled as the townsfolk leaned closer, solidifying around Sarah, each sharing their fears and hopes. From lost jobs to sick relatives, they painted a full picture of what this community really meant. Each story was woven with resolve, echoing the very essence of their unity, yet just as the resonance of their voices filled the room, the figure turned, retreating into the shadows from which they had come. This isn't over, they warned, but their tone lost the power it once held. A rush of exhilaration swept through Sarah's chest. They had forged something even deeper today, not just a stand against fear, but a bond infused with hope. As laughter and shared relief filled the hall, Sarah felt a flicker of worry. What was the figure truly capable of? And would they come back stronger? Together, she whispered to herself, we will face whatever comes next. Her resolve solidified, but inside, uncertainty lurked. Just how many more chapters would this fight have? How far would they need to go to keep their town safe? Perhaps it was only the beginning of a greater struggle. What would they discover next? Would their unity be enough to overcome the shadows once and for all? Days turned into a blur of activity. The town hall meeting had ignited a sense of urgency in everyone. Sarah felt the fire of hope spread through their community, brighter than the strongest doubts people whispered behind closed doors. Neighbors rallied partnerships with local businesses, organizing fundraisers that felt more like celebrations than struggles. Each event brought laughter and tears, shared stories embracing both joy and heartache, reinforcing the truth that they were in this together. But just as Sarah basked in the warmth of unity, news from Mr. Davis sent chills down her spine. They're going to ramp up their efforts. We need every story we can find, he warned urgently. We must present a united front at the city council meeting next week. Her heart sank. What if they weren't ready? But each time those doubts crept in, she recalled the way everyone had come together at the walk, families sharing tales of laughter that echoed through the ages, children's smiles shining bright. Sarah felt the strength of their unity whenever she heard Mr. Davis or Emily speak. So she decided to trust that strength, even as fear clawed at her insides. The day of the city council meeting arrived, a bitter chill settling in the air. Sarah looked in the mirror, wearing a light blue dress that reminded her of summer skies. In that moment, she wasn't just representing herself. She was the voice of every neighbor, every child dreaming of a future shared in this very place. As she stepped into the hall filled with worried energy, an uproar of apprehensive whispers clung to the walls. Her resolve shone through the cracks of anxiety. One by one, they told their stories. Sarah started with her own, of late-night hustle and dreams she held for Jake. We're fighting for our memories, she proclaimed, each word breaking more ground in the hearts of the audience surrounding her. It's never just been about a piece of land, it's about love, family, and connection. The room vibrated with an energy she had known was there but hadn't dared to hope could grow so strong. People were standing, nodding, tears pooling in many eyes. That moment revealed something magnificent. They weren't just neighbors anymore, they were family linked by shared hopes and dreams. The community sat riveted as Sarah pushed through the initial fear. We refuse to be seen as barriers to progress. We've been here for generations, and our stories deserve to live on. As she looked out over the sea of familiar faces, she caught sight of the figure from the black car in the back corner, still silent as tension rippled through the room. But the glimmers of hope ignited by her neighbors' voices couldn't be snuffed out. Mr. Davis stepped up next, exuding a fierce determination. "My fellow citizens," he called out, taking hold of the moment. "This isn't merely a battle for property, it's a battle for our souls, our future. We deserve to shape what lies ahead, and our community is more than just an address." Roars of agreement followed, and Sarah felt joy threatening to overflow. With each person who spoke, the heart of their community surged with life. The additional stories baked into the tapestry of their resistance drove the message home. The developers' polished claims about progress began to feel insincere against the raw power of their reality, yet, somewhere in the back of Sarah's mind, unease still lurked. What would the developer do next? Would they fight even harder now that they had seen what a united community could achieve? The shadows might still loom, but she held tight to that spark of hope blossoming above all fears. As the meeting concluded, the council listened and nodded. The message resonated loud and clear. Maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to see. Later that night, Sarah returned home, the moonlight casting a glow on the familiar streets. She felt lighter, buoyed by the love of their community. But then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed ominously. A text echoed back from Mr. Davis: "They're threatening to fight back hard. Be ready for a push." Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. They had made progress, but now the battle was far from over. This fight wasn't just for homes anymore, it was for identities, histories, and futures interwoven through generations. But these thoughts didn't overwhelm her, they empowered her. It was time to dig deeper, to rally the community again. They had unwittingly forged the strongest bond possible, their stories intertwining. As dawn broke in the days to come, each neighbor joined hands, ready to weave those threads tighter. They would face whatever challenges the developer threw their way, ready to defend their homes and souls. Sarah felt that unity soothed her worries, yielding a comfort that transcended the complexity of their struggles, and in those moments of quiet reflection, under the shimmering stars, she saw glimpses of what home truly meant. Maybe the storm was far from over, but she trusted in her community's heart, knowing it was worth every ounce of fight. Together, they would rise again. The future was brighter than ever, and she could feel hope fueling every step. They would face the challenge head-on, proving that love for one's home could conquer all. That their story was just beginning. And just as resolutely, she whispered to herself through the fluttering apprehension, "Together, we are unstoppable. Don't you see? This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that change lives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your small gesture matters. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending, we want to hear you. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel through these actions.